Hi, I'm Liz Bencivengo, licensed professional counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist. Today, going over a few study tips for the LPC and LMFT exams. So the first thing I'd like to start with is a outline of the way that I like to study, which is not going to be for everybody. Definitely, I understand that. So here we go. So there is a specific study method that I learned that is called analyze, synthesize, memorize, express. Analyze, synthesize, memorize, express. So the study method in itself will be following those 4 steps. Before I ever get to studying, though, the first thing that I do is pull out a calendar. So why would I pull out a calendar? Because I want to know how much time do I have to study. And I'm going to tell you for these exams, you need to be studying 2 to 3 months in advance, if not more. Okay. Depending on how many hours you have to study. But let's say for the sake of this example, you're only studying this month. Okay. And let's say for the sake of this example, that the exam is going to be on the 30th, the last day. So insert. So I'm going to write down the date that I'm taking the exam. So first thing, register for the exam. It'll get some pressure and light a fire under you. Next, I'm going to block out every day that I don't have any time to study. Work, copy, Wednesdays, and Fridays I work. Okay, so we're saying that this is Sunday, this is Saturday, Friday. Okay. Now, it's not to say that I can't study on the days that I work. I'll probably study 2 hours in the evening or however many you can, right? But for the sake of this example, say I can only count with Tuesdays and Thursdays for studying, and I only have 3 Saturdays, right? Which, if you actually had this much time to study before the exam, you might be okay. But what I found was I had 2 hours maybe on Tuesdays, 2 hours on Thursdays, 3 hours on a couple of Saturdays, right? That's more the reality. So you want to write down how many hours that you have, what is your block of time that you're actually going to be studying. So let's say you have some other commitment on Tuesdays that allows you to just have 4 hours on Tuesdays. So you're not necessarily having to write 4 hours in, but you know that you have 4 hours there, right? And you might make note of it somehow. I'm saying you also, I guess, have 4 hours on Thursdays. And then let's say on these days you have 3 hours. So we know. Okay. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to go back. So I have these steps. Analyze, which means, okay, if say this is my textbook, right? There's a specific way to go through the material. So first of all, pick a material. Pick 1 to 2 sources that you're going to use. I think I might have used 3, but one of them was an online program through which it's called Mometrics. And I'll put that at the end of my notes that I share with you. But it's an online platform where it asks you questions. You can do some study, practice tests. It's more geared for the LPC than the LMFT exam. So pick what you want, whether it's, I'm going to scroll down here on this document. So some resources that are typically recommended are the Helwig text, the Rosenthal text, the Mometric practice tests. If you're doing the MFT exam on the American family therapist's website, there is a practice exam. Also, there's a national MFT exam prep website that I just saw. So, like, I would say read over this one, all the information there, and see if it's something that you want to invest in. But so, oh, you know what? We forgot to put on our calendar where which days. So he said here, calendar blocking. Which days am I going to study, and then which days am I going to work on steps 1, 2, 3, and 4? But then also, when will I take my practice tests? So I'm going to go back to the calendar real quick. Okay, so for me, if I were taking the exam on the 30th, I would take a practice exam on the 26th, right? That way I can focus. These 3 hours are going to be focused on review correct answers or test corrections. Oh, I didn't put anything in there, but yeah, review test corrections. And then here too, this is going to be review weak spots. Okay. So we didn't put anything in there, or maybe it's up at the top, but we're going to do one practice exam. And then when we look at the scoring, we want to see where am I weakest and where am I strongest. So we can raise up the scores in the lowest area and probably know that we don't have to study that much in the easiest, the one that we have the best on. Okay. If you have like 3 months of study time, you could do another practice exam in the middle just to see where you're at and get some more practice. Or take the same practice exam and see if you improved your scores. The MFT website especially has a couple, I think, or you could choose from different websites that offer different exams. So now let's go back. Okay, I'm sharing with you what's my process. So once I picked whatever I'm studying, so the purple book is a question and answer book. It's not going to actually work with what I'm going to show you now, because that one is more of it's actually I personally, it's not how I like to study because I can't organize the information. For some people, a lot of people have had a lot of success with it though, because it's just question and answer and you memorize the answers to the specific questions. But like I said, I think also the questions in the purple book, I think it's the Rosenthal text, yeah, are more similar to the way that the phrasing in the LPC exam is. But okay, so say I take the LMFT manual, review manual, and I have it here. I'm going to first read the table of contents. So this is analyze. These are the steps in analyze. I read the table of contents. Like this one, part 1, blah, 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 part 2, blah, 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 part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. So I have a general idea of what's in the book. Then I read the subtitles, chapter 1, blah, 2, chapter 2, blah, 3, right, and so on. So I'm getting a framework in my head of what is the content that I'm going to be studying. Okay, next, I'm reading the headings. So part 1, overview of PCIT. Then, guiding principles of PCIT. Okay. Now I'm going to read the headings. Introduction, theoretical basis and influence, caregiver, child participant and treatment together, core components, core structural framework, right? So I'm building a framework to understand the deeper information that's going to be given to me. Okay. So I'm going to do that for the whole book. I'm not just going to read chapter 1. I'm going to read all of the headings. Well, at least for the first chapter. Yeah, I might do it by chapters actually. I'm going to read all of the headings within the first chapter. Next, I'm going to read the chapter. So then I start chapter 1 and I'm going to read the chapter. Introduction, no. Theoretical basis, no. Okay. Now I'm going to blow your mind away because this is the step they don't teach you in school. I'm going to make a chart or a drawing with the information that I just read in the chapter so that I can summarize it all on one page. Okay. So I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to show you a few examples of what I mean. Okay. So this is one that I made. So I realized that I was weak on knowing who were the psychologists and what were their theories. So I said, okay, well, what are the psychoanalytic counseling theories? Freud, Jung, and Wilhelm Wundt. Okay. What are the Freudian, neo-Freudian? Well, first it was like, what are all the theories? Okay. So then I divided it up. There's object relations theory, there's humanistic theology, the developmental theory, social psychologists. So I had to group them all. And you do these according to what your brain makes sense. Doesn't need to look like mine. Some people do really elaborate drawings. I do like blocks and lists and squares. But like if you're very artistic, you can draw something that reminds you of the information that's in there. So especially for the MFT exam, this is a very helpful thing to know. What are the theories of psychology and what kind of modality of therapy is there? Are they using? So, if someone were to say, like, if someone was using a theory of REBT, how would they treat Susie and Bill, who came in with whatever presenting issue, right? So it's a little bit of case study, but you need to know, like, okay, well, what is REBT or who is Albert Ellis? What kind of a theory is that? Or what kind of tests would you offer if someone were coming in with some kind of cognitive disability? That's another kind of question that might be offered. For that one, I would have relied on a chart that I made. So this is kind of for visual thinkers, right? A chart that I made based on what are the different tests and inventories that people can use. People, psychologists, counselors could use if they wanted to find out a specific condition that somebody had. So these were the intelligence tests, achievement tests, aptitude tests, personality, and interest tests. And so then I divided them into groups. Because if you divide them into groups, you can remember them better versus just trying to piece it all together and remember a bunch of random information. Okay. Another chart that I made are psychotherapy, the basic philosophies and key principles. I would definitely say this one is really important information to know. So, like if Bill and Bob went to therapy, Bill is the dad, Bob is the son, and they went to a family systems therapist, what would be some of the key concepts that they would experience in therapy, or what would be a technique that their therapist would use? And it'll give you a bunch of them. Or if a child has autism and is sent for some kind of behavior therapy, what is the philosophy behind that? And it'll give you like A, B, and C and D options, right? So this is just a way to organize the information in your brain using a chart so that you break down the information. Okay. I also did one for statistics because there are some questions on statistics. And that was test and inventories. Okay, now I'm going to really, really blow your brain because this is a lot of information, okay? So, but this is called a synoptic chart. So this would be my whole study for the whole exam. And this took more than 3 months to complete, just FYI. So you'll see across the top, there's 3 different divisions. Actually, it ended up being 2 pages. So there's 5 divisions of major information that needs to be known. There were transgenerational models of therapy, classical schools of therapy, social constructivist modes of therapy, classical schools of therapy, and more social constructivist modes of therapy. That's interesting. Oh, you know what? It's 2 pictures of the same thing. Sorry. It's just that it wouldn't all fit on one sheet. That makes sense. Okay. So the second part is this part and below is copied twice. But anyway, what's the idea here? It's that you can get an idea of how many phases have there been in the development of family therapy, of therapy in general. Where did it start out in history? And so like the beginning is the universal concept of the family therapist. And then there came the multi-generational concept with Bowen. And then there was the contextual, and then object relations theory, right? Then they talked about classical schools. So this is basically the development of family therapy throughout history, right? Through the different types of schools. So anyway, the point is not that you make a chart that looks like mine. The point is that you be able to conceptualize what you've studied in a way that you can memorize it. Okay? So let's go back to, so you made the synoptic chart, whatever yours looks like. It could be like 4 lines. I don't care. As long as you can memorize it. The next step is you memorize it. Okay? And then you're going to express. So then the 4th step in the learning process is to express your chart, express what you've learned. So explain your chart to other people, create questions and ask yourself about it, and then answer the questions, and then take a practice test. So let's go back to the calendar. I mean, so say I took the practice exam. On this day, what am I going to do with my 4 hours? I'm going to review test corrections. Okay. I have to work this day. I can't study. On this day, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to my first step in our plan, which was analyze. So I'm going to analyze, or I'm going to read chapters 1 through 5 and make my chart, my small chart of whatever the chapter was. Okay. It's probably not realistic goal, but for this, usually I would do 1 chapter per day, but it depends on how much material you have, right? So you got a wedding here, so you're not going to study anything. Okay, this next Sunday, you have some time. So let's say you had 3 hours on this day, and you decide so now you need to read chapters 6 through 10, and then make their chart chapters, right? So then the next day I have to study here. Okay, and now say I'm just doing 1 book and it was just 10 chapters long, which is not going to be realistic, but typically I would spend probably 2 weeks analyzing, doing the analyze phase, okay? So then next I'm going to make my synoptic chart, which is my chart of summarizing everything. And then this day too, I'm gonna make synoptic chart. Okay. And then this day I have 3 hours, and I'm going to start memorizing the chart. Okay. And then maybe this day also, maybe I have 3 hours. I'm going to memorize the synoptic chart. Now, these are all just estimations, but I'm planning it out so that I can make sure that I don't get to the exam day and I haven't gone through all the steps. Okay, so now I'm going to be on expression. So I'm going to use expression. I'm going to explain expression level A, right? Explaining my chart to others. And then this time, now I'm going to expression B. I'm going to create questions and ask myself and then have other people answer it. Okay? Or have myself answer it. So what do I mean by create questions? I'm going to create a question that's a scenario. Susie and Bill come into therapy. They have been married for 30 years, and one of them is divorced previously. If they were to attend therapy with the Milan systemic therapists, what kind of interventions would they use? Or what kind of interventions might they experience, right? Or so then I would write a bunch of questions, just kind of come up with questions while I'm looking at the material. And then the next time I would answer the questions. So you might even spend 2 sessions, like one session writing the questions and then another session answering the questions. And then you go over, I have a family gathering, I'm not going to study. I'm going to work here, I'm not going to study. So then I'm going to expression, I'm going to go over the answers that I wrote when I answered the question and see, did I do it right? What did I leave out? How could I have completed that information? Did I get it completely wrong? Right. So it shows you where's your weakness. Okay. And then here, practice exam. I was going to have the practice exam this day. I might be able to move it up this day if I've already finished everything. I'm going to leave this in as a buffer, okay, in case I'm running behind. So just leave this one day blank. And then the next day I'm taking a practice exam and then reviewing the test corrections. So I'm ready for the exam the next day. So hopefully this is helpful. I will, what I can do for you is send you a copy of the printed document of the steps. Take whatever helps you from this exercise. If the study method is helpful for you, use it. If you have any questions about this, just shoot me a message. Okay, take care.